Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It is the first time I'm doing this live stream or Zoom recording during a Shabbat. It is holy time, it is exceptional time. This is time that our Creator had set apart from the rest of the week. So we'll see how this goes. Basically, we're going to look at math. It's not so much the difference of how it's translated, it's more of a difference of numbers. Genesis chapter 5 contains 32 verses. The biggest difference that I noticed is verse 29. It says in the MT, he called his name Noah, saying, this shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which Jehovah has cursed. And in the Septuagint says, and he called his name Noah, saying, this one will cause us to cease from our works. That's a whole different ballgame from comfort us. So we're going to stop from our works and from the toils of our hands and from the earth. So we're going to stop from not just the work we do, from the work we do with our hands, the labor, but also from the earth. We're not even going to be on the earth anymore, which Jehovah Elohim has cursed. And that's true because what happened during his time was the flood. You couldn't do any work with your hands at all, because the work back then was all pretty much agricultural work, agrarian society. They couldn't be on the earth. And Jehovah Elohim cursed it because of all the sin. And indirectly, people's sins cursed the land that they live on. So if you see people doing something wrong on your land, whether they know it or not, whether they know about Torah or not, and you tell them, hey, you shouldn't be working today, it's the Shabbat, and they don't listen to you, that's on them. But at least you told them, and at least, say they do stop working and they don't understand what you're talking about, but they respect it and they say, okay, I'll do it because I don't want any more curses on our country and my life. And they'll be blessed just for their faith. So some people have the position that you cannot legislate righteousness. You can't legislate the Torah. Well, the Torah is legislation. It's literally, that's what it means. Torah is law. So to say that, to imply that you cannot legislate it as the law of the land is, I think it's satanic, because yes, we have freedom of religion, but in this assumption that freedom is freedom of law, freedom of being constrained to a set of rules, that's actually slavery. You're a slave to sin. So people can, use a lot of different mental gymnastics around this, but when you come down to it, yes, you can legislate these kinds of things, and you should, because if that were not so, then the commandment where it says you shall not murder, they took that. A lot of our laws to do with murder come from that. So many laws do come from the Ten Commandments, from the Torah, but they won't give credit where credit is due, unfortunately. So I know I kind of misworded it, but basically, let me pause the recording while I just come up with the words. I can't remember the word at the moment. Okay, I found it. It's a quote from former President Barack Obama. He says that you cannot legislate personal morality. You cannot legislate personal morality. So, you know what? It's an interesting topic because I believe he says that it's absurd. It's absurd to inject your own personal morality into public policy. But the Torah isn't personal morality. That's God's morality. He's the ultimate moral voice overall. So to inject your own personal morality, for example, if I say, I don't like people wearing hats in my house, for example, that's personal. But if if it's really universal morality, God ordained, that can be legislated. So what he was trying to do, I believe a lot of people take that statement of his that you cannot legislate morality, and they use it as an umbrella doctrine to say you can't legislate the Bible either, where that's clearly wrong. God's law was always meant to be legislated for not just Israel, but the rest of the planet. So that's a very big mistake, and you can see where our countries, where our planet is headed, because they've outlawed the law, basically, of God. So that's a big problem. You should and you can legislate the Torah. I know a lot of people of other faiths are trying to legislate their own code of doctrine, code of beliefs, their own creed. That's why you have that movement with Sharia law being made into the law of the land in a lot of countries. And that's their choice. That's their, they have that ability to do that right now for the time being. So why is it that Christian nations, Judeo-Christian nations, cannot do that to their people, but you have people in other countries, such as in the Middle East, are doing it? And no one's saying it's wrong. I mean, the people who are pushing that, they're not saying it's wrong, they're saying this is good. The only people saying it's wrong are those who are a little more liberal and disagree with a lot of the stricter things being taught, especially when it comes to gender. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that. I'm going to move to the math part of this this teaching, because pretty much this chapter looks about the genealogy. That's what it's looking at. So we're going to look at the math here. And I'm just going to ignore the Masoretic because the Septuagint really has the right numbers. But it does and it doesn't. So I'm going to explain that. So if we look at the numbers from starting at, we'll just add this up. Line by line. So it says Adam was how old? It says 230. So he was 230. So let's take that number and we add that to how old Seth was, 205. Okay. Enos, 190. So I'm just taking the Septuagint as the word of God, not even going to think about what the numbers are. Canaan says 170. Okay. So we add 170. And then Nahalil, 165, sure. Whatever you say. And then it says Jared is the next one, 162. So this is probably going to be a little bit boring, but so Jared begat Enoch and 165, okay. 165. And Methuselah is next. It says 167. I'm going to prove a point to you. And then who's after that? Lamech was the son of Methuselah. It says he lived 188, according to the Septuagint. And Lamech begot Noah. And Noah's 500. Okay, so Noah, 500. Okay, 2142. Right. So that's 2,142 years in total. From Adam to Noah. So I'm going to take my Word document file here, or not Word document, Notepad, and show you something interesting here. So according to the Septuagint, if you keep going from Noah, where am I here? Noah. Yeah, there's other sons. Shem was his next son, okay? I'm going to add those numbers up. But just sticking to 2142, if we look at the year 2142 in this document. It's called the Jubilee Cycle Calendar by Joseph Dumont at citedmoon.com. The year 2142, according to many experts, is the year that Abraham and Isaac were already alive. Okay, 2142 after Adam. But the interesting thing is, let's just add. I'm going to add the rest of these numbers, the ones I have on the side there, and you can cross-reference this with the Septuagint, with your own Septuagint. So 100 years is when Shem gave birth to Arphaxad, and Arphaxad was 135 years. Okay, so 135 Arphaxad, and then Canaan was 130. And then you have Salah, 130. Eber was his son, 134 when he gave birth to Peleg. Phaleg was 130 with Ragau. Okay, just watch the numbers. Ragau, 132 when Saruk was born. Saruk, 130 when Nahor was born. Nahor was 179. 179 when he gave birth to Abraham. So 3,000. Do you see that year, people? 3,342. If you take the numbers of the Septuagint, as the English translators translated the year numbers into, what the numbers they came up with, or they ended up with. If you add all those numbers up, you get the year 3,342. Do you know where that is in the millennial week? We're already in the 4th millennial day by the time Abraham is born. There's a big problem with that, and I'll show you what it is. Now, according to many, even if your timeline is a little bit off, where you would fall in that timeline is 3,342 years after Adam. I'll tell you what's already happened, even if your timeline is off. But for most people's timelines, Moses was already born. The Israelites already left Egypt. King Saul was already born, and they started the kingdom of Israel. King David was born and died. King Solomon was born and died. And Israel was already split into 2 nations. You have you also have, I believe, Babylon falling. Okay, no, Judah, where is this? You have a lot occurring. So basically, 3,342 years. How can Abraham be born at this time when Israel already left? Okay, Joseph, all those things occurred already. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, those are done. Obviously, Joseph was done. You already have Moses, his story being fulfilled. You have King David and his son Solomon and the kingdom of Israel splitting into 2 already by this point. Even if your calendar is somewhat off from the mainstream, you're still going to have gone through these events 3,342 years later. So that's a big, big problem. So the thing is, do we throw out the Septuagint and just say, okay, it's a bunch of, it's humbug. It doesn't make sense. No, we don't do that. So what do? We look into the actual language. We look into the Greek, because I do believe firmly in my heart that the Septuagint is true, but there has to be something wrong, not with the Greek itself, but with the translation. So I looked into that, the word for 100. It's ekaton. It's close to the word eschaton. But if you translate that word, there are many meanings for this word 100. Obviously, 100 is one translation. The second one can be last, can be the last. It can be understood as the end, the extreme. So this could be a qualifier, possibly, for the verb to live. So because the word 100 is really close to the word live in Greek, which can make it mean lived, so past tense of live, so the last of living. So this would give us a different number. So let's look at that with this in light, that it's not 100 as it's saying, it's only saying lived. So if we subtract 100, basically, you're basically going to subtract 100 from pretty much all of these years, okay? And let's see what we get. So I pretty much took all the numbers from the Septuagint, but I'm only going to subtract it by 100, except for the one that's 100, because you can't have somebody giving birth at 0 years old. So let's start from the top, okay? Adam and Seth. So he'd be 130 years old, Adam. Oh, let's clear this. So 130. Oh, how do I clear this? I'll just open a new calculator. I'll open a new calculator. There's a calculator, okay. Yeah, okay, so let's start from the top. 130. And then Seth to Enos, he'd be 105. And then Enos to Canaan, that would be 90, not 190. And Canaan would be 70 years old. Malaleel, 65. Jared to Enoch, 62 years old. Methuselah, 65. Lamech, 67. So it makes more sense. Noah to Lamech, it's 88 years old. Shem Arphaxad, he'd be 100 because you can't have 0 years old. 35 years old. And Canaan to Salah, 30 years old. So they're giving birth a lot earlier now. Salah to Eber, 30. Eber is the father of the Hebrews. That's where the name Hebrew comes from, Eber, 34. Peleg to Ragau. So you can see they're getting younger as they give birth. 32 years old, Ragau. Seruk was 30. Nahor was 79. So look at that number, 1,142 when Abraham was born, from Adam to Abraham. So if you look at that, 1,142, actually it says Terah was 70. So I missed a number. So let's add 70. 1212. Okay. So I have the year 1212 when Abraham was born. If I look at my genealogy of mankind, which I had compiled and I did a presentation on it, you will see, oh, I missed somebody. What did I miss? I think I missed Noah. Where's Noah here? Did I even include Noah? Yeah, I missed Noah. Okay. All right. I feel like I missed Noah, but anyway, if we look at how old Noah, or how old I have, 1724, because what happened, I missed 500 years. So you have to add 500 years, because I believe Noah was 500 years old. I think that's what the Septuagint says. It was actually 500. So let's go back to that. Where is it? Noah. 500. Okay, so it's 500. I have to add 400 years. Because for Noah, I didn't include any years, to be honest. I don't think I even included anything here. I basically have Lamech to Noah, and then Shem to Arphaxad. So Noah was not included. So I'll just put Noah here, because he was not there. Noah, that's 500 years to Shem. So it says he was 500. So let's add that. 500. We have 1712. So It's 1,712 years. So the number I got here in my timeline here is around 1724. 1724 or 1712, depending on, there's a little discrepancy of maybe 12 years, depending on how you look at things, but roughly 1700 years. So let's look at this Jubilee calendar to see where that would fall, and if it's within reason. Is it a reasonable timeline? So I have it taking place, most scholars would agree that so the most recent event I have here is, it says here, Arphaxad being born. Okay, and it also says here, yeah, so it's roughly, we're pretty close. But most scholars place the flood, I believe they place the flood, where is it? The event of the flood. Anyhow, it's roughly around, let me just pause the recording. I want to find the year of the flood, just so I can, okay, so most scholars place the flood at the year 1558. Okay, that's most people would agree that's the year of the flood, around there, 1558. So I personally, it says here that, well, I don't place it at that year, personally, 1558. I have the flood dating to, just using this math of when people were born, closer to the year of, not 1558, but actually 1342. I have it at 1342 to as late as 1354, based on the book of Jasher. So that's not a big time difference. It's only a difference of at the most 12 years, but roughly 1342. So we have a discrepancy of about 200 years or so. But what you will find when you do this timeline matches up more closely with the David Roll timeline of the Exodus, which, when you do that, it lines up with all of history. It actually makes sense. The Bible makes more sense doing that. So I hope this has been very informative for you, that there was a mistake, not in the Septuagint itself, but it's in the translation of the word 100, ekaton, into English. And when you just take it as it is, you end up with a timeline that is pretty ridiculous. It doesn't make sense based on human reasoning, based on common sense, really. But when you do take that word and you understand it to mean not 100, but as the end of living, then you then subtract 100 from all of those years that I showed you. You end up with 1712, and a more reasonable timeline that harmonizes with the rest of the Bible, with even mainstream opinions as well. 1712 would be the year of Abraham's birth at the earliest, and at the latest would be 1724. So that's this presentation for Shabbat. This was Genesis 5. It may seem a little tedious, a little repetitious, but the thing is, why is this important is because if we can find the correct timeline, that would enable us to understand what year it was that the Israelites would be freed. It would allow us to understand when King David would be born. It would also help us to understand when Yeshua would arrive. It would help us to understand not only the things that have happened, but things that are going to happen. It would help us to understand how much time we have left until the return of the Messiah. So, not saying we can predict the day, but we can at least get an idea of around what year, a general time frame, maybe not the exact year, but a pretty close estimation at least, similar to when they were looking at the birth of the Messiah the first time. They had a good idea of when it would happen, but they just didn't know uh, the exact date, because that did take place on the Feast of Trumpets, the Yom Teruah, the day and hour no one can predict. That's the Hebrewism, and the same thing with his return. You can't predict Yom Teruah. It's the only holy day that falls on a new moon. So that's all for today. I might do another one if I have time later, but I just wanted to make sure I get at least one presentation done. This day, ironically, is very busy. There's a lot of Zoom meetings going on, a lot of spiritual knowledge being taught, a lot of fellowship being done as well. And I have another Zoom meeting to join. So just thank you all. I pray Jehovah bless you all, and may you make your way prosperous. And I command you to serve him with all your mind, all your strength, all your soul, all your being, all your heart. Doing so will bring him closer to you. You will not only get closer to him, he will draw closer to you. A loving relationship based on trust, faith, hope, love, and to love each other as Yahushua loved us, which is really the greatest love any Adam can have for another Adam. So thank you all. It is Shabbat. It's a blessed day. Just relax. Do good. Think good. Say good. That's all I have to say. So Shabbat Shalom. Until next time, I'll do a presentation tomorrow on Genesis chapter 6.